Hi, it's Jill Sprott here. Thanks for joining me for this week's Storytellers video from Two Peas in a Bucket. Throughout the month of April, our theme has been milestones, those events, great and small, that serve as signposts in our travels through life. Regardless of whether you took your crush or your cousin, your high school prom most definitely qualifies as a milestone. Last week, my daughter attended her prom, and as I created this layout, I realized that I'm still in a state of shock. Rather than fill a journaling card with exclamation points and question marks to express my disbelief at how quickly she moved from diapers to a prom dress, I worked in numbers on the layout and used them as guides for the journaling. In this video, I'll share my process for creating a prom theme layout that incorporates numbers as a design element and as a storytelling tool. Camera in hand, I snapped a series of before and after photos on prom night, from my daughter's hairstyle and makeup to the exchange of the corsage and boutonniere. To truly capture prom on a layout, I couldn't just let the requisite couple photos stand alone. Including pre-prom photos helps to convey the giddiness and excitement related to the event. My daughter chose the larger photo to accompany the smaller pics. She preferred its relaxed, candid feel to the more formal photos taken that evening. Given the large size of the photos, I decided to build up rather than around, working in a mix of colorful and translucent layers. I took my color cues from the photos as well as from the April mood board from Two Peas in a Bucket. I selected a mix of bright pattern papers from Studio Calico, Jelly Bean Soup, and Crepe Paper, as well as pattern vellum from Doodlebug, Crepe Paper, and We Are Memory Keepers. I don't always know where a page will take me, but as I work on a layout, I do try to keep close at hand papers and accents that have caught my eye, like these labels from Evalicious and Jelly Bean Soup. They aren't glossy, so if you stamp on them or print on them, the ink won't smear. Glossy label stickers are a pain, but the matte ones are great. I also brought my very classy Ziploc bag to the party here. It's filled with crepe paper die cuts. Once I open the original packages, everything comes spilling out, and I'm afraid of losing those small precious bits, so I find that it's easier just to keep them in a sealed bag. Alright, time to get started on the layout. For the background, I'm just using basic cardstock. I want to keep it simple, just because there's going to be so many layers being built up on this layout. Working with two large photo blocks side by side can be somewhat challenging since the photos alone take up so much space. My approach here is to divide the page in two by creating two separate layered sections. Even though they are separate, they'll be unified through their proximity and some overlapping elements that I'll add later. After creating a vellum foundation for each photo, I added a photo mat behind each one. The patterns were selected not just because they work with the color scheme, but because they each have a prom feel to them. The floral paper reminds me of my daughter's corsage, and the male and female figures on the Jelly Bean Soup paper remind me of my daughter and her date, who, she would like me to emphasize in this very public video, is just a good friend. Here, you can see that I'm trimming the vellum to remove its centers for a future use. This paper is precious stuff, worth conserving, so once I figured out where I wanted it to go on the layout, I went about cutting out the centers of all three sheets of vellum that I'd added to the layout. I do this with pattern paper at times, but not if I have multiples of the same sheet. You'll notice that I've staggered the photos a little so that one is higher than the other. It frees up the space a bit, making the arrangement less stiff and giving the eye a little more room to roam. This will also make design sense later, as I'll add the journaling and the title to the extra spaces created. Here I am sneaking in a little polka dot pattern paper as kind of an afterthought. Layering often involves an over-under process. It's really more about experimentation than careful planning. Now it's time to include the numbers on the page. In preparation for that, I've pulled out these Wanderlust Mistable, or in this case, inkable letters from Studio Calico, as well as a pale tomato ink dauber from Hero Arts. I just add the ink directly to the letters on the sheet, and then, with a paper towel, I lightly dab away the ink to reveal the pattern on the letter beneath. Since there are 7 photos here, I've prepared 7 numbers. The reason that I'm numbering the photos is to create a key of sorts for the journaling. Each number will correspond to a specific prom-related memory. Looking at the page as is, you may be wondering how the heck I'm going to fit any kind of journaling here. Initially, I considered journaling on labels, but I did not want to cover up the photos. so I decided to place the journaling behind the larger photo. That way, I could extend my journaling beyond short snippets and also write by hand, without worrying about having to relegate the text to a limited space. As I composed the journaling, I referred to the key that I had created with the inked stickers, numbering my journaling to correspond with the numbered photos. The first two photos focus on my daughter's hair for prom, which her grandmother helped her to transform from a YouTube possibility to a prom night reality. After writing about the first two pics, I moved on to the next two, which share the hilarity that ensued as two people who had no idea how to put on a corsage or boutonniere were assisted by a crowd of parents and grandparents. The fifth and sixth photos focus on my daughter's makeup and how much her non-makeup wearing mother had to spend in order to get this kid prom ready. Talk about numbers. The final photo shows the culmination of it all. Two gorgeous looking young people ready to have fun on prom night. After finishing the journaling, I tucked it behind the photo to the right. Knowing that I would be adding journaling behind the photo, I was very sparing with the adhesive, only using small pieces of double stick tape so that I could move items around if necessary and ensure that there would be room to add the journaling. With the journaling done, I turned my attention to the title and reached for some Studio Calico print shop transparent alphas. During a recent, and rare, stash reorganization, I discovered these unopened. My mess had apparently caused scrapnesia, a condition that involves forgetting the previous purchase and or placement of a product. For the second half of the title, I used pink October afternoon chipboard letters, but gave them an extra boost by inking them with pale tomato ink. The ink dries really fast on the letters, so I didn't have to wait at all before adding them to the page. The bigger issue was where to add them. Rather than edit it out, I'll share with you a peek into my crazy process for title placement. So here you can see I'm moving the letters here, there, everywhere, and the best part of it is that they end up right back where I started. With the basic foundation of the layout completed, I moved on to adding a few accents to the page, and I began with a simple search for a label on which to stamp the date, finally settling on one from Jelly Bean Soup. I then reached into my Ziploc bag of awesomeness and magically pulled out 3 crepe paper die-cut accents that are perfect for a prom page. There's a wood veneer camera, which makes sense on a page featuring a series of prom photos. There's a silver glittered tag, which echoes the colors on my daughter's dress. And finally, there's a lovely cluster of roses, not unlike those on my daughter's wrist corsage. The final touch was to call attention to the hidden journaling, lest it remain hidden forever, by adding a sticker that says, "Here's the story." And there's the story. There you have it, a milestone documented, a story told, and a prom night remembered with the help of numbers. What's that you say? Your ruffled dress was way too horrendous on prom night? Or your date's mullet far too embarrassing to appear on a prom-themed layout? Don't worry about it. Regardless of the subject, this by-the-numbers approach to journaling can work well on any multi-photo layout. So now it's your turn. I'd love to see your take on this idea, so be sure to share your work in the 2Ps gallery. Thanks for joining me for this week's Storytellers.